very good morning to each one of you. On behalf of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry, we welcome each one of you to the BCIC webinar on Industry 4.0 with Augmented Reality and Mixed Reality. This session is being organized under the aegis of Industry 4.0 Expert Committee of the BCIC. We like to especially thank Mr. A. N. Chandramoli, past President and Chairman of Industry 4.0 Expert Committee of BCIC, and also Mr. V. Jagannath, co-chair of Industry 4.0 Expert Committee, and also business head M2 Next, the BFWC, curating this session for the benefit of the members. The speaker for today's session is Mr. Raj Kiran, Senior Director and Head IoT AR Business India PTC. The session is moderated by Mr. A. N. Chandramoli. On behalf of the BCIC, we'd like to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Raj Kiran for accepting our invitation to address on this important subject. We also would like to thank all the participants for joining today's session. We request all of you to kindly mute your mic and webcam option. This is to enhance and keep the bandwidth strong, as well as avoid any disturbance in the background. So our request will be only for the speakers to kindly be on the webcam and the mic. So that will help us to have a better reception. Please post your questions on the chat box only. The speaker will respond to the questions during the session, and in case time do not permit, we shall be sharing the queries to the speaker and shall revert back to you accordingly. May I now invite Mr. A. N. Chandramoli to inaugurate and set the context for today's subject and also moderate the session. Over to you, Chandramoli, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Prithvi. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Are you able to see my opening slide?
Yes, sir. Slide is perfect.
Once again, welcome on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Raj Kiran. I request even new people joining to mute their mic and then join. Prithvi, there is a tool to handle this. You know it, correct? I already hear some MG Road aircrafts. Rupa?
Sir, please go ahead, sir.
I cannot, unless you promise me that you'll use the tool.
Yes, sir.
To not allow anybody else's audio.
Yes, sir.
There is a tool for that. You go there, participants, click audio muted. For new joinees, you have to alert and mute it. And after 11:30, I don't want to admit anyone. Being a working day will be a little flexible. Okay, once again, welcome. Prithvi, I'm getting still the noise.
Yes, sir.
Maybe it's from your chamber, I don't know.
No, we are all muted, sir. I'll also mute it.
Today is a very, very important webinar. I don't want a disturbance for the speaker. For me, it's okay. It is perhaps the 12th of a series of webinars we've been having from the month of May on the topic of Industry 4.0. Today is a very specialist coming and talking about augmented reality and mixed reality, AR and MR, which is born out of VR, virtual reality. Many of us who have gone to many exhibitions, we have seen virtual reality where we sit on a vibrating chamber and then we feel that we are going into the rocket space and getting into the moon and whatnot. So VR is very familiar for many of us when we have participated in those exhibitions and museums. But the VR moving into AR and then MR being the combination of VR and AR. And we welcome Mr. Raj Kiran once again, who's a leader in PTC. And PTC is a leader, global leader, and one of the top visionaries according to Gartner Magic Quadrant research. I'll share with you this link later on the text box. You can understand what is Gartner Magic Quadrant research for industrial IoT platforms. Several companies have been researched by Gartner, and PTC comes in the top 3. Now, a little bit introduction. We always talk in terms of what is Industry 4.0. Today, I know there are many companies and students participating. So it is good to have a refresher. Next 3 to 4 minutes, I'll talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, Industry 4.0 is not a buzzword. It is a very important technology which is changing all our lives. For example, when you are driving a Ola car, you are booking the car and the driver has got a mobile phone, you got a mobile phone, and both your mobile phone are talking to each other and declaring where the car is coming and when it is coming and when is it arriving, and thereafter you can trace the car as you are traveling until the destination. It also gives you the payment and other systems as part of the Ola car booking. So the similar concept, you try to adopt it in industry. It becomes Industry 4.0. Why is it 4.0? 1.0 in 17th century was driven by mechanical engineering revolution, the steam engine. 2.0 is driven by electrical engineering revolution, which also led to mass manufacturing through conveyorization and so on and so forth. The Ford Motors is a brilliant example of that. 3.0 heralds the arrival of computerization and a little bit of automation, including robotics, which existed even in the revolution called 3.0. But when it comes to the 4.0, the internet became a core technology, and internet we are using in day-to-day life, in our mobile, in our television, and so on and so forth. If the same thing is deployed in manufacturing domain, we get Industry 4.0. The internet is enabling what is called a data-driven approach to manage and control our manufacturing environments. And data is a backbone in the whole technology. We get descriptive data, which means the data which talks about what is going on in our shop floors. Diagnostic data talks about why the situation is like that and why is it deviating from the norms or expectations from the standards. And then we talk about the predictive data, which basically conveys what is going to happen in the future, and the data analytics of the future based on algorithms, including machine learning and artificial intelligence, as we talk about. And finally, decision making with the help of descriptive, diagnostic, and predictive data is called the prescriptive data analytics, which means you can take decisions. When I say you, it is not only the person, even the machines can take their own decisions in a self-adjusting mode of what we call as a digital transformation. And digital transformation is applicable not only for large corporations, it is also applicable for small and medium enterprises who constitute 70 to 80% of the value addition of large corporations, such as trucks and tractors and machine tools and whatnot. And digital transformation foundation is digitization and then leading to digitalization. And digitalization leads to digital transformation. Many speakers have spoken on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce in the last 8 months. And I don't want to take much time between me and the speaker. I just want to touch upon only one point. Augmented reality is one of the top 10 technologies. And you can see in the picture, many technologies are written there. I don't want to describe what they are. That is a separate webinar we'll conduct later on. But all these are leading to value addition to the customer for a customer's benefit in terms of safety. Today, health is extremely important during the corona. Quality, productivity, cost. These are all the evergreen top subjects of business excellence and operational excellence. Uptime guarantee, which is a reversal downtime of machine tools and equipments. Delivery of products and services. Cycle time of various operations. And above all, flexibility in the era of digitalization and automation. The flexibility is extremely important for customized manufacturing. Customized manufacturing is nothing but producing any product that you want at any time without any restrictions of mass manufacturing. Now, the key takeaways of today's webinar: improvements in asset efficiency, production performance, and workforce productivity. How to improve all of them with the help of IoT and augmented reality. IoT and augmented reality are the two eyes of the face, or two sides of the same coin. Augmented reality cannot exist without IoT, whereas IoT can exist without augmented reality. And the two technologies go together, and PTC's combined portfolio of IoT and AR is going to be presented by Mr. Raj Kiran. And the last 3 decades, PTC's industrial experience helps in creating digital twin creation. Digital twin has almost become a Chambers Dictionary term, and there are several leading corporations doing simulated manufacturing concepts called the digital twin. And high value IoT and AR use cases, the return on investment have been proven to be beneficial to cutting across the value chain from small and medium enterprises up to the large corporations. And compelling augmented reality use cases will be presented by Raj Kiran, and which is augmenting the human ability to learn, train, and service better. To learn, to train, and service. The three use cases I think he's going to show. Raj Kiran is a senior director and head of IoT AR business. Welcome, Raj Kiran. He leads a team of sales, pre-sales, demand creation executives to tap into the vast potential of the India market. He has been helping companies start their own digital transformation journey as well as chalk out their IoT plans. Prior to PTC, Raj has worked in Oracle for 10 years, heading the telecom ISV unit in Asia and USA. Raj Kiran has been associated with the companies in Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, HP, Infosys. You name it, I think all the leading IT corporations he has worked. He has traveled to close to 45 countries in various business engagements. And later on, I will come back at 12:30 when we talk about the Q&A. But I invite and welcome all of you to place your questions. Right from now, you can start shooting your questions on the text box. And I don't want anyone to switch on their audio to ask questions unless I permit them at 12:30. Over to Raj Kiran, and I welcome him once again on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Rupa, you will permit people up to 12:30. Some more are waiting in the lobby. I can see. We should not disturb the speaker by admitting more and more people. Raj Kiran, thank you. I will unshare, and you can go ahead and share your presentation. Thank you, Raj.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mauli and Mr. Prithvi. Before that, it's a pleasure for me to be part of this session, and it's a delight for me to be speaking to you about this mixture of technologies that you accurately depicted in your one slide. IoT and AR is really the coming together of many different technologies together, and PTC with the experience in the past 6 years with these two technologies as well as 35 years of industrial experience is quite well positioned in tackling and giving you a view and to help companies chalk out their digital transformation plans. So pleasure for me. I've been working for PTC for 3 years, and it's been a very good journey so far. And COVID has actually accelerated the adoption of these technologies because of a variety of reasons, which I'm going to touch upon as we go through this session. I just want one confirmation, Mr. Mauli, that you can see my screen, and I'm going into full screen mode.
I can see your screen. I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
And I'm very delighted to have your session today. Raj, go ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And yes, here's where I start. Industry 4.0, I think it was very, very clearly described by Mr. Mauli. We started off with steam engines, 18th century, and the 19th century was about electricity. The 20th century innovations were around transistors, computers, electronics, and so on. And now we are entering the age of cyber physical systems, which is physical systems that have the ability to sense, think, and act, and use cyber technology. With the explosion of internet, with the explosion of 4G and now 5G as well, all this is going to be fundamentally enabled perfectly for the use of data. Data, you must have heard the cliche, data is the new oil. And as everybody consumes more and more data and the backhaul improves to take care of the amount of data that is being used by people, the amount of okay, someone is requesting control. All right. Now, so that is the fundamental basis on which these technologies are going to be used and taken forward. Now, let me move to my next slide. Ways to get work done in the industrial enterprise. Overall, forever, there's been the machines from, for the past 300 years. We've been having machines in the industrial factories, in the industrial settings. And what were the advantages of machines? It's got physical power. It can do, very, very rigorous jobs consistently. It's got resistance to very harsh environments. It doesn't get tired, machines. And, it's indefatigable. So you really cannot, you really have machines that can go on and on for hours together. So the advantages of machines have over the years being of a certain kind. The humans, and let me just clear this off. Yeah, humans, there's going to be, much as we would like to take away a lot of mundane tasks from humans, and with artificial intelligence also improve the way humans interact, the human advantages of the way we can ideate something, our creativity, the way we can innovate something, is still very far for a machine to replicate. Okay, so AI cannot catch up for the next few hundred years, I would say. Humans have got these unique abilities of how to recognize patterns, sensory patterns. Um, Complex communication, for example, is something that's only possible by humans, and of course, sensory motor skills, which is understanding something and doing something in quick time as a response to that. These are the human advantages. Now, with the advent of digital technologies in the past, say, 50 years or so, starting from transistors and so on, and PLCs, we've got amazing calculating power which is coming in, right? We've got data processing abilities. And to an extent, we've got a small amount of artificial intelligence, which is incorporated already into various systems. So these three elements of doing your work in any enterprise, but particularly in factories as well, which is where the digital transformation is first catching on, of humans, machines, and computing power still remain. Okay. Now it's about how the three of them can come together and be synergistic between each other. Okay, which is what every technologist is looking to do. And that's why all of these technologies coming together is a huge bonus for performing tasks more efficiently and freeing up your lives and decreasing stress in the way you go about work. Let me go to the next slide. Yes. Now, let me touch upon IoT. Mr. Molly said without IoT, AR cannot function, and vice versa to an extent. And IoT is about changing the physical world, or depicting the physical world into digital format. And AR is about doing the exact reverse, about putting the digital data back into the physical world. All right. So any presentation on AR is incomplete without mentioning IoT, and therefore I'm going to talk about IoT a little bit during the course of this 1 hour going forward. So what's IoT? It's about making products smarter. It's about understanding the performance of different operations within an organization. And it's also about improving performance of the processes. So essentially 3 Ps is what IoT improves: people, products, and processes, right? So workforce productivity improves, that's people. The asset efficiency improves, which is really the return on asset, which every company looks to establish. That's the product improvement and the productivity improvement of those machines. And then the processes would be the performance improvements of how to optimize existing processes. What are the loopholes that you can really, where are the gaps that you can really optimize from? Now, the digital format of how products can connect to the cloud, and how you create an accurate replica in digital format of the physical machine is what is called digital twin. Okay, the digital twin concept is about the exact behavior of the physical object should be depicted in the digital format through various models and methods. And that's what PTC is one of the proponents of, to create a digital twin of either a machine or a process, particularly in the process industry, etc., is what we can specialize in bringing out for people. Okay, so as you do that, you'll be able to improve the efficiency of products, to improve the efficiency of, because you've got greater visibility by controlling the products remotely through a cyber dashboard, for example. And that's where the digital twin, why is it called a twin? Because one change in the digital format is going to reflect a change in the physical, and vice versa as well. So they've got a really a twin kind of a relationship between them. What else does IoT bring to you? Analytics. Now we talked about, Mr. Molly in his slide talked about 4 different stages of analytics, going from descriptive all the way up to prescriptive. And you really want to know ahead of time what to do in prescriptive analytics. You want to know what to do to prevent a failure with a machine or to optimize a process. Okay, so these are the 2 major things that really IoT brings to you, apart from visibility into the industries, into the factory's performance and the performance of any product which is out in the field. How IoT and AR work together. Now, this is where why are they 2 sides of the same coin, and why is it that putting them together is going to be synergistic for any enterprise? A product which is connected to the internet is actually, with the use of sensors and the amount of data that's flowing from the product into the cloud, is extracting a tremendous amount of information and data with which you can really analyze its behavior and optimize and take actions based on that. The data which is coming back from the cloud to the product, this is called the actuation. So sensing is one step, actuation is the reverse. That's how you control and optimize the data. And automation is a part of this. And you can really control a product remotely. Now, computer vision and where augmented reality fits in is when a human looks at the machine through a tablet or a mobile phone or a wearable device, which is also shown here in the slide on the left side, looks at that machine and he gets graphics or any kind of prompts and alerts merely next to the machine. He doesn't have to go to a screen where there could be screens, computer screens installed in a corner of the factory. It doesn't really have to do that. Every graphic and alert is provided to him in front of him when he looks through the HoloLens or any of the other wearables which are there. What does that help him do? It helps him visualize the internal parts of an automotive, for example. It helps him instruct what needs to be done to another person that's is very far away, and therefore it helps him interact with that machine. And every single procedure can be really shown to him in the form of an experience. And I'll show you a few videos in the latter part of this presentation. But this is fundamentally the concept. What are we creating after that? We are creating smart, connected people who have the access to technology, IoT data on their mobile phones, and also people who can look at a device and see the intelligence, see the experience in front of them through a tablet phone or a wearable phone, right? So at the end of it, what we're really doing, and this is the ideal state, is optimizing the work of man and machine through the help of technology, through the help of digital technologies. Therefore, you created smart connected products, which is really IoT, smart connected humans, which is a combination of IoT, AR, and all of that together. And therefore, the processes become extremely smart and connected together, right? Now I'll move to the topic of digital transformation, which is really a buzzword that people have been hearing for a while. But what does it really mean beyond calling it the 4th industrial revolution? So what's really digital transformation? Transforming digitally the entire workings of your enterprise or your factory. Okay, where do we start? We start with it's something that touches upon every single aspect or every single business unit or every single department of your company. The corporate CXO, for example, is always focused and has been focused on creating new business models, modernizing the workforce, and increasing shareholder value. Now, what he wants is ideally a dashboard to visualize how his products are performing, how his people are performing, and how his processes are doing at any given point in time. He needs a snapshot of that. That's what IoT at the very basic can enable for a CXO. He wants dashboards. He could be sitting in his in his air-conditioned cabin, but he wants to know exactly what's happening in all the factories that he's got across geographies. And with sensing technology and industrial IoT, that's what he sees. Coming to the aspect of engineering, let me use the laser pointer here. Engineering, what are they bothered about? They've been designing, creating, manufacturing products for a long time with people spread across different geographies. They want to be doing this quicker and accelerating time to market and doing it more efficiently, working fewer hours, etc. So from a designing phase itself, the components that are engineered should be visualized upfront, which you can do with augmented reality technology, as well as should be sensed and tracked right from the beginning itself. So that's how the engineering department benefits from digital transformation with IoT and AI. How does the sales and marketing organization or the department benefit? Once a product is made smarter, it's got a voice because it's got sensors. So if a washing machine is installed in someone's home, it still talks back to the central platform with the data that it emits, right? With the data that the manufacturer now gets. So people know how it's performing, and therefore they can improve the product in future, in future releases. Or if there's a far-flung tier 3 city in India, for example, where you've got to demonstrate, where the salesperson has to go and demonstrate a very heavy equipment, he can do so by using augmented reality experiences, and he can recreate a large complex pump for an industrial manufacturer in a tier 3 city in India, and he can show him the various features of that through graphics and through the various experiences that you can create with augmented reality. I've got a video on that, and I'll show you that. How does manufacturing and supply chain, and this is where the smart manufacturing topic comes about, and this is where a lot of costs can be reduced by improving your people, products, and processes. And this is restricted to the factory shop floor. And how do you optimize the plant throughput, the worker productivity, and also the process improvements? How do you create process improvements? And how do you ensure quality, compliance, and worker safety? Very relevant in today's post-COVID or COVID era. Everybody is looking to see how they can optimize their factory processes and make sure that people are safe while they're performing optimally, and some of them performing remotely, etc. Manufacturing, supply chain, huge impact. One of the biggest impacts of digital transformation is going to be in this area. And now that we are going to embrace the new normal, this is going to be something that is here to stay for the future. Customer operations. Now, I was giving you the washing machine example. If there is a washing machine that's failing, sometimes it may be possible for the consumer itself to rectify that machine rather than having to call the customer care of the manufacturer. How does he do that? He can get instructions on how to change something in the washing machine. It may be just pulling out something and just unscrewing something and rescrewing it. It could be as simple as that. That is probably why a failure has happened. That can be instructed to him by the use of augmented reality technology, which is again an experience that can be sent to him because of the IoT connectivity that's the washing machine had in the first place. So huge benefits there. Manufacturers don't have to send service technicians for every single customer call. And therefore there's cost reductions there possibly as well. Remotely, things can be fixed, which the manufacturer can initiate himself, or in the worst case where a manufacturer needs to send a remote technician, he can come in and pretty much he knows what's wrong with the product, and therefore he can come in and fix it. In the industrial environment, the downtime of assets is a huge problem. Which means if an asset is not performing, if a machine that is producing, that is assembling automotive parts, for example, is not performing for an hour, that leads to lakhs and crores of rupees loss, which manufacturers cannot really afford. And therefore, predictive analytics of when it's going to fail, etc., is going to be beneficial, and also how quickly you fix it or how you fix it is also going to be extremely relevant. So customer operations, hugely relevant there. Customer service is about how you reduce, how the executive department of the customer care executives come and fix a product. A service technician whose first day on the job could come in and fix a complex equipment in front of him, all with the use of augmented reality and IoT put together. And therefore the time to resolution decreases, and therefore the downtime decreases. I'll touch upon the current factory situation and tell you why industrial IoT is relevant. And despite a lot of factories having probably implemented a lot of technologies which are there in these four levels for the past couple of decades. I mean, a lot of companies already have PLCs. They also have human machine interfaces. They've got a SCADA system that is installed. They probably have a manufacturing execution system, and for production execution, they've got a layer of that. Some companies don't probably, but the others who already have these four, they've got ERP, product lifecycle management systems, and probably supply chain management systems as well. But these different layers of this ISA 95 stack have been installed separately or inorganically have they been put into the factory, which means there's no common data repository that each of these layers actually talk to. And therefore each of these layers are independently functioning. And therefore they're highly complex. They're from multiple different vendors. There's a mix of modern and legacy mix. Some of these systems could be very new. Some of them are extremely old. And therefore there's an inbuilt rigidity in the system, and therefore interoperability may not be that easy. And because of that, you have these problems, right? There's no flexibility. You've got maintenance is done very reactively. Operational visibility is not comprehensive, and it's not real time, and therefore you've got the unplanned downtime problems, etc. Right? That's where an IoT platform can come in. Industrial IoT platform, and it can be anything. You wrap around all of these existing layers of technology, which is there in every factory already, and you would be able to now have a consolidated, comprehensive view of all everything that's happening within the factory. Right, and that is why it is breakthrough innovation really, and that is why more and more enterprises are willing to adopt or wanting to adopt this technology as quickly as they possibly can. There are many surveys which show that over 90%, 95% of companies say they've got digital transformation as part of their longer term plan, but a lot of them don't know probably how to go about it. And that's where companies like PTC come in, and we look at how to enable these companies. What does an industrial IoT platform give to them? It makes all of their operations, people, and assets connected. It makes it real time. So at any given point in time, you can actually see how anything is performing. And you can have different dashboards for different roles. For example, a plant manager would want to see something that's different from what a quality advisor or a quality head would want to see. And the operators would want a completely different view. Probably they want their work instructions digitally delivered to them to tell them a stepwise sequence of what they need to do during the day, during the week. Analytics is something that can absolutely be brought in only with the use of digital transformation technology. And I'll get deeper into what predictive and prescriptive means. Now technology can be delivered to them on their mobile phones as well, and as augmented reality experiences too. And that is extremely powerful. So everybody now has a mobile phone, so they just tap into that. They see everything in the digital format, and the advantages of that are known to everybody. You can just have them updated on real time. So it's no longer the age of the paper where they're told something in the morning and nothing changes throughout the day. And all of this enables wrapping an extension of vision and hugely improves the data-driven world, the data-driven methodologies by which we perform our tasks today. An ideal IoT platform, and I must really call it an IoT plus AR platform, should have these 5 capabilities that are there in the center of this band. Sourcing is about getting data from various different factory equipment, various different assets, various different things on the factory. Also from different machines which are deployed out in the field. It could be MRI machines in the case of a medical device manufacturer or a hospital. It can be a tractor for an agricultural company. It can be anything from an energy source as well, which we need to pick up data from. You may also have data in cloud. You don't have to replace any of that. You can just extract from a cloud and push that into the central platform. You may also have data in designing systems and product lifecycle systems, etc. And you may want to pull all of that into the central repository. So this would be step one. The step two would be, now how do you contextualize that data, and how do you create a digital twin of that data? How do you create an accurate replica of the physical world into the digital format that I was describing?
We would request Colonel Hari Prasad to please mute your audio and switch off the web camera, sir.
Yes, I made this request 3-4 times, but Colonel doesn't want to listen to me. Anyway, Colonel, please switch off your mute your audio and video.
Right. So contextualization is about creating that digital twin. So we do that by methods of a very object-oriented model methodology, something called the thing model, with which you can, if you all know Java, which a lot of people I'm sure do know, you'll be able to bring in data in a particular format in terms of what functions are associated with the object and what the change of state is reflected within the object, etc. So it's a very smooth method by which we do it. And that's the contextualization method, because a lot of data, 88% of data by a lot of researchers in the past have been unutilized. And therefore, how do you utilize more of the data that's generated is a big challenge in the data industry, which we're finding solutions for right now. The third step would be about synthesizing. Synthesizing is where analytics comes in. It's about where simulations come in when CAD data is involved, etc. But generally, how you do predictive maintenance, how you do prescriptive maintenance is all incorporated here. How do you take data from repositories and then push insights back into business systems is what we do in the third step. The fourth step is about changing business processes. It's about looking at the current as-is process of a company and then changing it to a to-be and giving recommendations and business logic recommendations to a company. We've got the tools for that as well. And the fifth is really about creating applications. It's about creating mobile applications. It's about creating desktop applications, but also about creating augmented reality and virtual reality and mixed reality applications for the industry. All right. So this is what ideally a comprehensive IoT platform should do. And therefore we should be making it. A lot of companies probably look at lay overt stress on the sourcing aspect, which is important, but is not really the end goal. It's about how you create an application for the end user or for different people, which should be the major focus. Now, the digital manufacturing solution suite, I'll just talk about one. I'll just talk about our solution set in one slide, which is about how different companies or the CXOs, like I told you earlier, would want operational intelligence into the happenings of their industry. Okay, top floor to shop floor is the terminology or the buzz phrase that is used to reduce manufacturing costs, to increase flexibility and agility of manufacturing networks, right? And we've got a good large clientele. We've got 1,500 customers worldwide that are using our technology. Probably it's even more. This is data from 3 months ago. And we've got the large and small as well. You'll see on this slide a lot of large companies being mentioned, but we do cater to the MSME segment as well. We're running an initiative with Intel and Vodafone and HP in India under the Diksha initiative of the government to be able to provide our technology to the smaller companies, to companies that are smaller in revenue size, but digital manufacturing is really for everybody. It can improve the process and the visibility for all companies of all different sizes. Specifically about the different applications on the 3Ps that I talked about, intelligent asset optimization is about enabling
Hello.
real-time monitoring and diagnostics and creating all of that and knowing when a machine will fail, etc. A lot of companies have done that. And what does it lead to? It leads to downtime and maximizing asset utilization. So that's something that you can deploy off the shelf with our technologies. The second would be scalable production management. Now, production and production planning needs to be done in a very structured way for most companies, and the CXO, the production head, should really have control over the production process. What does it bring? It brings reduced cost of inventory. It improves the quality and accelerates time to market of the machines or the discrete products that you're producing, or even the process industry, and say sugar, oil, pharmaceutical products, etc. How do you now optimize that entire process is something that we have under the banner of production management. Under digital workforce productivity, something that's extremely relevant in today's times, you've got the entire set of IoT and AR coming together, and it empowers the manufacturing workforce, the frontline worker, the service technician, with actionable augmented intelligence to improve their productivity and avoid safety and compliance risks. Okay, I'll show you a few videos on this, but before that, I'll tell you what are the kind of percentage improvements. I know a lot of you may not have worked in the industry yet, but you should know that this is not just buzzwords. I think Mr. Chandramouli had also alluded to that. This is really something that's got rupee benefits, that's got benefits in terms of improvements in costs for every company. And therefore, the value with operational intelligence would be these are the percentages up to which you would find improvements. The operational cost reduced by so much, the capex can reduce by so much, the OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, can actually increase by, in this range, 3 to 50%. And energy costs, a lot of companies are actually using much more energy than it's really required and wasting a lot of energy, right? How do you optimize all of that? We've seen companies derive this kind of a benefit. Workforce productivity, something I touched upon, something that AR topic is going to be greatly helping. Operator productivity, on the ability of people to learn when they see graphics in front of them is huge, and therefore 5 to 60% is the amount of productivity improvement. And then you see the remaining here, and eventually you're building an agile and flexible workforce with the use of workforce productivity solutions. Asset optimization, again, these are the values that you have, and unplanned downtime, like I mentioned, to know that to plan for a downtime is going to be obviously much better than to have unplanned downtime, and therefore that translates into rupees, and you can decrease that by a range of 30 to 50% by using technology. This is something I talked about, scalable production management. You can make it artificial intelligence enabled process planning. It learns, the system learns on its own, and machine learning will support now and will tell you the root cause, and that's where prescriptive maintenance comes in as well. Let me show you a couple of videos. This doesn't have audio. So this is done with a large pump manufacturer called Flowserve. And this is the kind of machines they produce. This is air and water pumping. When it's open, you actually see the dashboard and the pressure of the liquid that's flowing through it. You get actionable intelligence of all of this. And it's also telling you how many days to failure for this machine. right? For these different components of the machine, the impeller is likely to fail within 3 days, it said. Now, with augmented reality technology, and let's say a maintenance technician goes to the machine and opens his tablet and looks at the machine, it tells him the vital statistics of that machine. It tells him that there is a misalignment on one component, and this is precisely what AR technology can bring to you. Now, in the normal course, if he's just looking at that machine without any augmenting, he's not likely to find out that there is a minor misalignment, which could lead to a failure in future. And there is a minor problem with the statistics, etc. Right? So this is what technology can bring to you. And obviously, this pump is fitted with a lot of sensors, and therefore it senses every aspect of it, and it matches that to a model. In the case of augmented reality, you can also match that to a CAD model, and then see why there is a misalignment and give guidance. Let me give you another video, and it should start now. This is done for a large cosmetic company, L'Oreal, and this is the dashboard that the CXO gets to see about the performance of his processes and the overall equipment effectiveness of his machines, and it gives them all the vital statistics in real time. And if you see here, is getting all the different utilization statistics for the processes, for the machines, tells him what the wipe stand, for example, how much it's been performing, how much production has been happening of the shampoo bottles, how he can search for different orders and then give an order for a certain number of bottles to be created, to schedule that. So he picks anti-dandruff shampoo bottle and says I want 2,500 of them, and then he just schedules them. Okay, and then the production process will now give him real-time information about it, and it really produces. And it also gives them information on the scrap levels of how much scrap is being produced. Now, what a production manager or a manufacturing head looking at this can do is to see this data in real time and take decisions based on it. This is even before analytics has been incorporated into this system. Okay, so this is merely operational intelligence for the various different machines. Now, this was something that could not have been done in the past. With SCADA systems, you could do a fraction of this, but to tap into various different data sources and get a comprehensive view of this, and to drill down into every process and get to know how many assets have been idle for 2 minutes, how many have been running for how much time, etc., was not something you could do with older technologies. Okay, so he's running even a maintenance procedure of cleaning and all of that by just clicking around here. All right, so now let me come to the topic of how we consult with companies and what we tell companies they should do. A company that is starting off with a digital transformation process, that wants to do it. It's their aim, it's their goal. They're serious about it, but they don't know exactly how to go about it, right? And that's where companies like ours comes into play. PTC has got good manufacturing experience for that many years, 35 years now. So we come in and tell the customer what we can do with them. And a majority of customers, and you can look at this Wi-Fi diagram, I call it that, in 3 steps. The first step would be the understand phase. The second step would be the advanced phase, and the third would be the outperform stage, right? The understand stage, where this is where 70 to 75% companies of the world are. And they're still looking to just have unified connectivity across their factory, across their devices, and they're still looking to have operational intelligence for the various people that are involved in the technologies. that are involved and interested in knowing how the people, products, and processes are performing, and they just want to know descriptive analytics. Descriptive analytics is what has happened, right? It is just about what failure has occurred where, with which machine, right? A majority of companies, like I said, are in the understand phase. And unified connectivity can be enabled by having sensors put into different machines if they don't already have sensing capabilities. So there's external sensors that are available in the market that can be coupled into machines. Operational intelligence is about creating those dashboards like the one that I showed in the previous slide as to how it can be accurately shown and depicted to the different people that are involved in the decision making within an organization. Okay, and descriptive analytics is about what's happened, which machine has failed, in which factory, which line, what number machine has failed. Now, how do we quickly go about doing it? In the erstwhile era, you probably didn't have that intelligence, and you would have to go and inspect it manually to know what has failed, right? Now there can be an alert sent to your mobile phone, and you can immediately take action based on it. About 15 to 20% of the companies are getting into the advanced stage, which is where they know when a failure is going to happen with their machines. And predictive analytics and different models can be taken into the IoT AR platform and put out to people, and safety instructions given to them as well. They are doing AR-enabled operations. So if they're assembling a product, they wear a wearable and then look at that product, and you're given stepwise instructions for it. And then they do just what is being told to them. And there's, with IoT technology, it even senses whether you've done step 1, and it gives you instructions for step 2, and it gives you a graphical experience to show you how to do it. Okay, so that's AR-enabled operations. Digital thread is about tracking the components of a, let's say, automotive or any product from its design phase or its engineering phase right up to the time when it is being serviced. For example, a carburetor within a bike, if it's got sensors on it, at the time at which it is being created in the factory, to the time at which it needs to be replaced when a biker rides it, the entire tracking of its life cycle should be done ideally. If it is done, then you have total visibility into the entire life cycle of that particular component. Now imagine a bike which has got all smart components within it, and it's telling you exactly what's how each of it is performing, what's the amount of wear and tear, when something's going to fail, and so on and so forth. That's going to be extremely powerful for the manufacturer to actually take actions based on. Okay, so that's digital thread, and therefore all of this improves the innovation ability, and with visibility, really, everybody will be able to now improve the time to innovate. They really have much more data at their hands right now to make sure that they take the right decisions, which is data driven. Outperform stage is where the ideal stage of all digital technologies would really come in. It is where probably a couple of companies in the world are really there. I can think of say BMW or ExxonMobil, who is probably are close to getting to this place, right? And that's where prescriptive analytics comes into play. What to do to prevent a failure that's happening? What should you do to avoid a machine from failing much before it actually fails? So it's one step above predictive analytics, which is just telling you when something's going to fail. Prescriptive is about how do you take actions, and this is where a lot of data sciences will come in, a lot of industry knowledge will come in to make sure that companies are told and given recommendations about how you change something much before it fails within a component, within the factory, within a machine which is deployed out in the field. And ideally then there will be zero downtime, which means nothing would have failed, because before even it gets failed, it is failed, you're actually changing the component smoothly. There's no downtime at all. And synchronized operations is a concept which is much talked about in the concept of dark factory, which is where humans don't really need to be present to actually even do changeovers, to actually go from one process to another, and all the operations are happening automatically, autonomously, and therefore the human involvement or interference is minimal. And that's synchronized operations. Performance benchmarking, in the case of a lot of process industry companies, say pharma, oil and gas, etc. They've got high standards of how the process need to improve on a day-to-day basis, produce more output with less, and therefore there's production KPIs which the production manager would have. And how do you then benchmark against the best of the best to make sure that we plug in the gaps between what is happening at the moment and how things can be improved in future. Supply chain visibility is about how you integrate now the entire process of your vendors as well outside your organization. Within your organization, you probably already have a digital thread taking care of it, but outside of your organization now you want to know vendors coming in, whether their components are being tracked perfectly. It's very applicable in the logistics industry, of course, but really any industry which is automotive, for example, where there's tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, and they'll know when someone is making a product, what's the quality right there, because then they can evaluate which is a better quality product even before they purchase it, for example. So supply chain visibility is where ideally with IoT and AR technologies we all want to reach. I think I'll take a pause here, and before I get into the augmented reality area, which is again a vast topic, and I'm hoping we've got about half an hour for that. Any questions at all from anybody? I'll wait for 10 seconds. If there are no questions, I'll carry on.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ideally, Rajkiran, I would like to take the questions at 12:30, Rajkiran. Let's park the questions. We'll take it up at 12:30, Rajkiran.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah,
fine,
you would
fine.
like to please put the question, sir, on the text box.
All right. Let me go with the.
Otherwise, we'll get into a problem of disturbance. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, then. So let's get into the topic of augmented reality. Like I was mentioning or alluding to earlier, this is based on the fundamental ability of humans to be able to read, to be able to learn much faster if they are shown graphics and videos in front of them. The prime example is how much we all learn from YouTube nowadays. I think I have completely stopped reading to understand something. My first go-to would be to search on YouTube to understand something, right? How does this work? And if that's not there, I would go into Google and search and read. This just been the default behavior. Augmented reality experiences do that for you. You can look at a machine and learn how to work with the different components of that machine. You can look at a process and it can tell you what to do with the process, what step 1 is, what step 2 is. It can help you document, etc. And there is a huge deluge of data. It's in the order of zettabytes, which are coming for people, and they have to grasp it. And we know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and probably you extend that a little more to say a video is worth many pictures, many thousands of pictures, or a graphic is worth many thousands of pictures. So humans, and that's why AR is catching on, and it's not just catching on as something which is jazzy, it is catching on as something that has got tremendous value in everybody's everyday life, which simplifies their life as well as makes it better and brings down costs in the case of enterprises. The market trends that are driving industrial disruption, there's tremendous worker shortage because technology is improving at such a rapid rate. There's worker shortage in the manufacturing space. There's a lot of risk and cost pressure. Everybody's trying to do more with less or the same with less. And there's tremendous digital disruption. So the Standards & Poor's 500 firms, half of them at today's rate are going to get replaced in the next 10 years. So we're changing a lot of the companies that are not innovating are going to perish. So that should be an alarm bell for a lot of CXOs today. And we are seeing that people who are not going to adopt technology early are going to be eventually going to perish. They're not going to realize what hit them at a later point in time. Now, how do you break down the industrial skills gap? This is a study that's done by various different industries. And what are the challenges today? There's a massive skills gap in the industry. And what is causing that skills gap? And what is it that is bringing about the fact that people are not learning well enough, or people are not competent for the job that they're currently on? Okay. One of the main reasons is the high cost of training. Today, everybody, when they join a company, is put into a classroom. It is generic for every different function, and there's hardly much that they use from that because it's not on the job training. It is really generic curriculum, and you bring them into a different city, you train them from morning to evening for 5 days, or probably more in some cases, and very less of that. Only 12% of the workers, according to a study, apply skills from training to their jobs. Okay, so that's one of the problems. The other is the aging and retiring workforce, and in the Indian context, it's also churning workforce. We have the highest churn rates in a lot of industries in the country, right? People switch jobs within 3 to 5 years, and so on and so forth. So we have to capture their knowledge effectively, and effectively is not writing documents, Word documents, because people don't write effectively necessarily, and the new joinee may not read effectively after that. So there's both problems. So how do you now plug that? How do you capture their knowledge effectively and then transfer that over to someone else? That's a big challenge. The challenges with traditional training methods. A lot of training in the past has been to shadow. Shadowing has been the most effective method, but how do 10 new joinees shadow one expert? It's really complicated. So traditionally, training has not been done in the most effective way. Like I said, classroom training would be the number one, and then they're told to shadow somebody for a month after that. And unless you get your hands dirty with doing the actual thing, you are not going to learn effectively enough. There's only so much you can really learn by looking at somebody else doing something. You have to do it yourself. And the other thing is about paper-based instructions. In the past, everything was in a manual. It was in a paper manual. And therefore that's not effective. And how do you now improve that to the next level where you can make it digital? And then this one, the fifth point, is actually very, very important, because there's a lot of negative perception that the young workforce has about industrial work. The youngsters of today are not treating industrial work as something that's cool for them. It's not something they want to associate with. So they're moving out of that. So how do you make it now something that's cooler in terms of them wanting to adopt it? They think it's dirty. They think it's dangerous, and they think it requires little thinking or skill, which means they think it's not intellectually stimulating. Therefore they think it's not personally a growth area, and that's changing. That has to change, because you are doing something in the industrial scenario. So machines are complex, and you really have intellectual stimulation, and with the amount of data and augmented reality experience which come in, you really can be quick with doing the mundane tasks and move on to something that's more effective. I talked about digital transformation impacting different aspects of the value chain. AR specifically also unlocks value for all these different departments, and in different ways. The corporate CXO is now looking at workforce modernization by building a digital culture and branding. When he walks into a factory, he just wears wears a wearable and then walks into a factory and he gets all real-time information in front of him. He doesn't have to go to one particular dashboard. He can actually see the machines when they're performing, how they're performing, right? And he's also interested in how training can be optimized and how savings can be made there. The engineering department is also looking at how the different people can virtually collaborate with each other. All of these, I think I touched upon many of these: sales and marketing for different experiences, manufacturing for making sure that you visualize a product even before it's made, and digital twin is brought in, customer operations on how the customer himself fixes a product. Customer service is also about how a technician is sent and the technician fixes that product in quick time or with one visit rather than multiple visits. And I'll bring some of these videos into context for you to understand. The first, which is very relevant in the context of COVID, is how a technician can remotely, sitting at home today, he probably cannot go to the factory or to the customer's place to actually fix something. He can instruct somebody who's closer to there, or even instruct the customer himself on how to fix something. So expert assistance can be delivered remotely. Knowledge can be transferred remotely and even learned. The new joinee can actually learn faster and trained faster. Products can be visualized. This is the engineering area even before it's made. So you'll know how a car looks, for example, even before the manufacturing happens. The product demonstration, sales and marketing can happen to the customer without actually taking the product to him. And a lot of bike companies, a lot of large, heavy equipment manufacturers have already started doing this to create experiences of their machines so that customers can see it. Work instructions I touched upon, stepwise instructions rolled out to them. Factory operations oversight and inspection can be done remotely or in front of them, and you can see how processes are happening. And operations on how to touch and instruct and guide different machines can be done by the manufacturer or the operations head, very effectively, and he can change something through a digital interface in front of him in thin air. It doesn't have to be on. It can be generated anywhere by the click of your fingers, really. Okay. I'll first talk about the churning workforce topic that I touched upon. This is somebody who has spent a lot of time within the company. He's actually a retiring gentleman, 26 years in the company. He knows how best to manage this machine or to operate this machine in front of him. He's got a tremendous amount of knowledge inside his head. How does he now document that for the new joinees? And how does a new joinee come and learn how to work with this? Now, you can't have 100 new joinees shadow him here. That's impractical. And therefore, how do you document what he knows? So this is how, let me run the video. Yeah. So he wears the wearable. He creates an experience. That's called Vuforia Expert Capture. Now he shows how to fix something or put a component within a machine. He can take a picture as he does that. He can move across the factory. He's saying what step 6 needs to be. He instructs, he annotates, and that whole procedure of operating that machine has been captured with the help of these wearable devices. Okay, and you can go down into into great detail of this, of every procedure as well. Now, a new joinee has come into the company. She wants to just learn what the other gentleman actually captured. And what she does is just look at what step 1 is. It says remove tool and insert edge finder into spindle. And it gives her the graphical interface for that as well. It tells her where to move next. It gives her the safety instructions. Ensure you're wearing safety glasses, for example. This is step number 6. And it tells her where to go next. And she does exactly what was instructed to her. because she had the aid of the experience, because she had the aid of the augmented reality experience. And that's why she was able to do that so effectively. Imagine the amount of confusion there will be in this complex equipment shop floor if it's all written in paper manuals or even digital manuals that you have to read. You'll be confused as to, first of all, which is left, which is right. A lot of people will say it said turn left. Is it my left? Is it the machine's left? There's a lot of confusions there. And even beyond that, there's a lot of other confusions as to what component exactly has to be turned and so on and so forth. So this is, for training, the most effective, right? Now in marketing and sales, how do you now visualize a product in your homes? A lot of you must have seen these as AR examples in the past. How do you visualize a product? This is done with a furniture manufacturer. So a consumer wants to understand how do we place this product. This is a furniture manufacturer. So there's a sofa, there's a chair that he wants to see whether it'll fit very well in that corner in his room. Okay, for example, so he pulls out his mobile phone, he picks the product that he wants to see. It immediately fits in there, and he knows what color will go with his background, for example, and therefore he picks that, and whether he wants a poof with that, etc. That's done with IKEA, a Scandinavian manufacturer. Now, expert support, very relevant during COVID times, and something fails, it needs to be fixed immediately. People can't travel, and therefore a technician sitting in the comfort of his home should be able to give instructions to a technician who's out on the field in front of the machine. And you see the machine in front of her is actually pretty complex. There's a lot of reds, there's a lot of blacks, so even giving a color instructions is not easy. But a remote technician is saying, just touch this. And the power here is about annotation, is about how you can circle something and it stays on the physical world, okay, which you can't do with YouTube videos and even a WhatsApp session. So a lot of people ask, how is a WhatsApp session or a FaceTime session different from this? Now you can't annotate, and it won't stick to the real physical world. Okay, so she's getting instructions like that in real time. She knows exactly what to do, and therefore her effectiveness goes up tremendously. Customer self-service, this is a blood analyzer in front of a technician or even someone who's a customer itself, an operator of this machine, and he has to be told what's to be changed. So there is an issue with this, and therefore he's given instructions, power off the device, and he's looking at it through his tablet phone. He's asked to remove, and he's given instructions on what to remove. So he knows exactly what to do now because it's not written and there's no gap in terminology. And it's said, put it back together and you screw it, right? And that's the instruction given. This is a very simplistic video to show how you can give an instruction to somebody remotely. Now, another area is to look at it overall with IoT data coming in. All of these did have, but IoT data is coming in huge amounts in this particular video. And someone wearing a HoloLens is standing in front of a large air compressor equipment by Howden, a large multinational in Europe, in the US. And this is an air compressor manufacturer. He's seeing the vital statistics of the machine in front of him by just wearing that HoloLens device. So, and this is how you create the experience, by the way. This is where our tool comes in and how you create the machine comes in. So he looks at the machine, it locks onto the device, it identifies what the device is. It gives him a lot of statistics of what the oil level is, what the gear levels are, what the statistics are. And it shows in red the alerts. There's a high bearing temperature, for example. And he just has to click and order a spare part, for example. That's what he just did. And if he's a technician that requires to remove something and change something, it's also telling him how exactly to do that change. Okay, so that's why extremely powerful. Anybody can walk up to it and learn about the machine. Now I've got, I think, 15 minutes left. I think I'll finish slightly before time, but this is how an enterprise that's looking to include augmented reality into their plans should be thinking about enterprise AR, should be thinking about how to adopt augmented reality. This is a framework for how to think about it. So if there's any decision makers in the crowd right now, how do you go about deciding what you should do and what are the various options with you while using while using augmented reality? Okay, so first of all, you should be looking at which type of reality your experience will utilize, right? What kind of is it assisted reality? Is it augmented reality? Is it virtual reality? Let me actually clear a doubt around virtual and augmented reality, which a lot of people have. Virtual reality does not take information from the physical world, and it just creates a virtual experience for you. For example, if you want to tour a city in Europe, and if you want to do a virtual tour, everything remains constant, and therefore you can create a virtual reality experience of, say, Paris, and you can wear that device and you'll feel like you're in Paris. You'll get the 360-degree view. You can go to the Eiffel Tower and you can view certain things, right? You can view everything in the city, whatever is created in virtual reality. You don't need any inputs from the physical world at that point in time to use for virtual reality. Augmented reality is about using inputs from the physical world, either the gap between the person and the corner of the room, like you saw in the IKEA example, or like you saw in the Howden example, the real-time information from an IoT platform. Okay, and then using that, you create an experience. That's what augmented reality is. And you get a 3D experience here. And the difference between augmented reality and the assisted reality is assisted reality would give you 2D and a dashboard or a screen in front of you. It would not give you a 3D experience. It would just give you a 2D experience on this, which is quite enough in a lot of scenarios. Okay, so assisted reality is also adopted by a lot of our customers. Okay, so that's what you have to decide first. What kind of an experience would you want to create? The second would be what type of device would we use and what type of platforms will it support? For example, what type of device are you going to use? A democratic device, which is either your mobile phone or your tablet phone, or do you really want to have a hands-free device? So who's going to use it? Is it going to be someone who needs both as hands-free? In which case you'll probably need to have a wearable device because you can't hold something with your hand. You will need to have somebody wearing a device so that he gets the graphics in front of him. The next is what kind of platforms will you use, right? Some companies may have already decided they are a all Microsoft company in terms of technology infrastructure. There's a lot of Microsoft components. You may want to continue to use Microsoft. So then you've got Microsoft HoloLens. We've got a huge partnership with Microsoft on the infrastructure layer and the cloud layer. So that's what you will have to look at. Some companies may say, I want to just go with all Android because I'm a fan of open source and I would like to go with something that's far more open than a Microsoft is, and therefore they go with that. So you've got to make that decision.
Raj, are you sharing your slide or we're not able to see your slide?
Okay, I am sharing my slide.
Okay, then okay.
Are the others able to see? Can someone else confirm that they can see?
No, we can't see your slides. We can only see your video.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay, I wonder where that went.
After that video, after that augmented reality video,
okay.
Whatever you described was without a slide.
Correct. Yes.
Particularly the wearable device and other things we were describing.
All right.
I thought it is an extempore, but then I realized maybe you missed your sharing. You can unshare and share the slide from that slide after that video.
Let me do that.
Yeah, that will be very useful for the audience to understand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Options that you're talking. Options are very, very important.
Yes, that's exactly.
So you're now converging into implementation. So at this stage,
that's correct.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, 34th slide.
Yeah,
Can you, if you can repeat also, it's okay with us.
Sure, let me repeat then, because I had a 5 minutes buffer. I think I'll only cover 10 this in 10 minutes, so it's great.
12:30 also not a problem.
Sure. So now this is what I was talking about, the framework for how, I don't know how it went unshared because I didn't even switch it.
It happens after a video.
Oh, is it? Okay. So here I am back on this. Let me repeat what I was saying. A framework for how to think about enterprise AR, right? It's about if your company is beginning to explore the options under augmented reality and convinced that there's a lot of benefits, which you should be because there are. How do you think about an enterprise AR strategy? Okay, so this is a framework for you to understand how you can go about devising your enterprise strategy for your company. So there's really three main headings. One is strategy, the other is content, and the third is delivery. Okay, how are you going to generate the content? How are you going to deliver that? And overall, what your strategy needs to be. And this is what I was describing on and on, but let me repeat that to an extent. I think I explained the difference between virtual and augmented, and I think that was clear. Assisted is about 2D images, probably that's demonstrated in front of somebody, and that would take real time. So assisted and augmented are real-time information coming in. Virtual is just static data. Okay, it's just static experiences being generated for somebody. And virtual experiences, virtual reality, I think has been around for 15 years. I think I first had a virtual reality device from Samsung maybe 7 years ago, and I've used that to actually interact with do virtual tours and virtual travel, etc. So augmented reality is where it picks up information from the real world and it makes alterations and gives you tailored instructions based on the physical world's aspects, which can be real-time information coming from the IoT platform, but also it can be the depth of the room, etc., from IKEA, for example. Okay, and assisted is augmented reality itself, but with a 2D interface, with a 2D display in front of somebody. The second is about devices and platforms. This is the other decision you'll have to make, and this is where I was. The devices would be: do you want to use a democratic device, which is a mobile phone or a tablet phone, which is something that everybody has these days, at least a mobile phone for sure, or do you really need to have your frontline worker having his hands free so that he does work with both his hands? In which case you'll probably need to invest in a wearable device, because it's then worn and you can just look at the device straight away, the machine straight away, and see the experience. And otherwise, do you want to have a heads-up display, right? You can see the virtual display, which is really called the planar display, which is shown in front of somebody, and you will be able to see that up there. So you can either invest in the virtual display or the hands-free, or just go with the democratic devices. The platform that you'll support would be in line with what your company strategy is about, what kind of technologies you've been doing in the past, and how there can be a seamless integration in what you've been doing in the past, right? So for example, I was giving earlier was Microsoft. Suppose you're already invested in Microsoft technologies, you'll probably want to use a HoloLens, and we've got a partnership with Microsoft in that. So the technology software comes from us, and the HoloLens is the hardware where you can consume these experiences. Or you might want to choose to go with an Apple operating system or the Android operating system as well. Okay, or it may be a multi-platform thing. So this is a consideration that a company must have while getting into an enterprise AR strategy. Then the other thing is about capabilities. What AR capabilities will you leverage? Do you want to have this for your engineering department only, that is going to visualize a product before it's built in the design phase itself? Or do you now want to have your frontline worker setting up a machine or assembling a machine in front of him or her, who's got a step-by-step instruction in front of him? Or do you want to now have designing done? And this is called spatial programming. It's a huge area in which we'll come to maybe in a subsequent presentation. But essentially, how do you design in real time? How do you look at logical controllers, PLCs, in real time, and how do you turn off and create physical objects? This is the next generation of AR, really. How do you program with the use of AR? And then what human senses will you stimulate? Will you be just stimulating sight, or will you be now stimulating an audio, sound as well, or whether you'll want to touch and give instructions for the whole thing? So that comes into play as well. These are the things you have to consider while building your AR strategy. Content. Now, how will you represent the physical setting? How are you going to capture the content from the physical area? The 3D reference model, what is that going to be, right? Is that going to be a planar surface? Is that going to be an image marker? Generally, to identify a machine, a service technician just has to scan what looks like a QR code, which we call a thing mark, and then it identifies it uniquely and it knows what machine it is, and then it creates an experience around it. Are you going to use that? The 3D models, do you want to look at a 3D model of a pump and it automatically identifies it's a pump and it gives you the operational instructions around it? That is the other way of doing it. And the spatial capture is about tracking an entire floor of a factory and how you are given instructions on where to go. For example, in the video that you just saw, you go from one machine to the other and you're annotated, etc. So how are you going to represent the physical setting is something that you have to bother about early. Second would be, how do you create the experience, right? How do you now, how much programming can you do? Should you do? We've got about 4 different solutions in our Vuforia product suite with varying degrees of programming requirement. For example, we've got content, we've got 3D apps that are created with what's called Vuforia Engine, where there's a lot of programming that'll be required. So you can create a customized application for your own company, and then you can build in any kind of capabilities into it. That's at one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, we've done all the programming for you. You just have to get to the machine and create it by instructions and clicking on the interface that you see in thin air. And therefore, anybody can really be a content contributor, and you can create an experience very easily. And then you've got the two in between them. Right, so we've got that entire spectrum. So it depends on how much you want to customize, and therefore how much you need to develop something that is unique to your company. The next is how the information you need to bring in is what the source of your content will be, and how do you configure that information, and how do you bring that in. The first would be, in one of the videos you saw, that data and text and IoT information is coming in. Because there's sensors fitted in on that air compressor that you saw. So you know how that needs to come in. Do you want to bring in images? Do you want to bring in sound? Do you want to bring in, haptics is the ability to touch something and get the information, etc. Do you want to bring in artificial intelligence and machine learning models, etc. So that's some of the considerations you'll do. Or do you want to bring in 3D holograms? Like in the IKEA example, you saw this. And in the case of remote collaboration and assistance, you saw how the content from the real world is just captured by, say, a video, right? It's almost like video, and how you touch it. And that's a combination of video and haptics here. Now, how will you then bring in, how will you source your content? Are you going to use content which is already available in the IoT area? Are you going to purpose build it for every single experience? And you have all that flexibility, and this is the way to think about it. We would be able to plug in any of these various methods of bringing in inputs into a augmented reality experience. Then would come the configuration management. How will you configure your information? Are you going to hard code them? Are you going to pull it off a content server? Are you going to use product lifecycle management? And CAD is anyway used for the models, but are you going to use PLM data for servicing, etc., to track the life cycle of a product, etc. These are the considerations you should have while thinking about content. Then it comes to delivery. How are you going to provide that experience to the end user? How are you going to deliver that as an experience? How are you initiating that experience? Are you just going to open up an application on your mobile phone? I think any of you can go and can download Vuforia View from the App Store and the Android Play Store, and you can install it on your mobile phone, and you can see some of these apps are there. For example, this bike example is there, and you can actually experience the experience on the app itself. Okay. Otherwise, you probably have to scan a QR code, and that generates an experience. And if it's a service technician that has to uniquely identify a particular machine in front of him, there's the image marker ability by which you can just scan this. This is really the QR code of the AR world, what we call the thing mark, and this can uniquely identify this, and you can generate an experience. Then the mapping. Right? The waypoint mapping is about placing an object in front of you, something that you want to learn about. That's what waypoint technology is. The image marker is right after the scanning of that image, it then appears in front of you, on the physical object itself. The planar surfaces, you can actually see that appear on the surface in thin air in front of you. And beacons, etc., are localization capabilities by which, in the retail scenario, for example, you're going to use beacons to sense something, and based on which you can actually generate an experience based on that. Transport, gesture, feedback, etc., is something that is also relevant in this area in terms of how are you going to provide real-time information? Is the streaming network that good? Is a backhaul network that good that you can have streaming content given? Does it have to be cached somewhere? Does it have to be downloaded on the client device at its own pace and then provided to the user for a seamless experience? All that has to be taken into consideration depending on where you are, what the internet connectivity is, and so on. Then how do you get feedback from the user? Are you going to do it via mobile touchscreen or voice commands, which you can do? You can say start, stop, next step, so on and so forth. You can do gesture based, which is really the click. You saw some of them should do that in the video. You click something and you get something in front of you. Or do you do eye tracking and so on? So these are the various considerations you need to have while making decisions on interaction. Okay. So overall, this is a comprehensive enterprise AR planning framework that you should really be considering too when you go about starting your AR journey. Where is AR being adopted across the value chain? I talked about various different aspects of the enterprise where it's being adopted in that digital transformation slide, but here is where you see the percentages. The number one applicability is in service and support. And 26% of all AR usage is here. It's pretty much almost there in terms of manufacturing as well, which is designing a product, visualizing a product up front. Sales and marketing finds the lowest acceptance along with product development. Okay. But operating a machine, this is more in the consumer space, and training people also finds a good amount of acceptance, and this is actually improving. In training, we're actually seeing a better trend going forward. Manufacturing and servicing are the top two. What are the benefits and what are the value drivers? You reduce unscheduled downtime tremendously. You reduce compliance costs. You have fewer accidents and you have lower scrap and in the manufacturing space. So you don't have to redo something because you've already visualized how it's going to look. You don't have to make it and then check. In the servicing area, the new hire productivity, or rather the reducing mean time to repair. I talked about customer service and customer operations. Reducing mean time to repair is one of the major benefits. Increasing attach rate is huge as well. Reducing training costs, improving new hire productivity in terms of how quickly you train somebody in the service department very soon, and then reducing number of service calls. Huge acceptance.
What is the attach rate? Sorry to interrupt. What is the attach rate?
Attach rate is how much spare parts, okay, can you attach immediately, okay, on the actual machine, right? How quickly can you how quickly can you also have an annual maintenance contract for a product immediately sold along with the product itself, okay? And how much can you have annual maintenance contract added on to that because of these abilities of servicing.
Thank you.
Now, the value that comes into certain companies, and we have a very structured way of going about this because a lot of companies or a lot of people really don't believe there's benefits with augmented reality. They think it's all jazz, but tremendously, a lot of companies have actually reduced costs and improved their top line based on using Vuforia. Okay, so the value creation, and these are slightly higher figures for the India context probably, but the percentages are really up there in terms of how much can be improved. So the number one in this area would be faster training time and less authoring time, right? 50% improvements there. So knowledge management, knowledge control within organization, documentation, etc., is going to be really something that improves tremendously because of the fact that they just now have to click and work on the real machine rather than write it out on a Microsoft Word document, etc. So that time is tremendously improved. The next is the unscheduled downtime. We see improvements of 28% with this sample company. Of course, this is a high-tech manufacturing company, which is massive, a multi-billion-dollar company. And this is how much they saved, $40 million per facility of theirs, okay, by just adopting Vuforia. And I'll give you an example of another discrete manufacturing company. This is this is actually the same company, and there's benefits of this much based on servicing, based on service cost reduction and reducing authoring costs. This is how much they have saved, okay? This is, of course, all figures in US dollars. And we see that kind of benefit even here in India. We've got, I think, 25, 30 India customers in the past couple of years who are using this technology to actually improve. The adoption is very steep. People are now recognizing even more of the value. COVID has accelerated some of that, and therefore huge potential value with customers. I'll leave with this slide. This is the last slide, and I was talking about the physical and the digital perfectly complementing each other. IoT is about converting physical into digital. AR is about doing the reverse. This is what our logo is based on. It's a P and a D based on the yin-yang concept, which is complementary forces, opposing forces complementing each other is what the yin-yang Chinese concept is about. That's what our logo is based on. So thank you very much for listening so far, and I'll just go into the chat window to look at questions, to take some top questions.
Don't worry, I have carried the chat window questions, Raj.
Sure.
You don't need to read it. I'm going to show it to you in a particular sequence.
Yeah.
Because some of the questions are very interesting. So they have made my life simpler. So maybe we don't have much time to add more questions. We already have around 10 questions.
Sure.
And including my own couple of questions.
Right.
So let me share the question so that everybody can see on the screen.
Okay.
And there are questions beyond these 12 questions. We have to ask you to stay beyond 1 o'clock. Anyway, you have a hard stop at 1. With much ado, I will go into that. I am very delighted to see the logo itself has got a meaning. You know, that one is a physical and the other one is a digital. And I never knew it all along. I thought it is some PTC shown inverted. PTC, you know, like that. And it also shows a kind of a teamwork. It's a kind of a teamwork between the old and the new technology. Let me now go into the slides here to make life simpler. Can people see can you see the questions, Raj?
I can.
Okay, so for the benefit of all, I'm making into screen mode, full screen mode.
Sure.
I don't know, Microsoft Teams is a little slow on.
I can read it here itself, so I'm okay with
okay,
non-screen
mode. Now, yeah.
Great. So which application is most popular globally for AR technology?
You can read and answer without my asking.
Yeah, you saw the data. Servicing is number one. I would say training is now number two. Okay, so servicing and training. Servicing because it reduces the number of times a service technician needs to go to the customer to fix a problem. If there's a large complex equipment which is really which has failed, now you know that with AR you can remotely service it. So it takes 10 minutes for somebody who knows the product to really do it very fast. So application that's most popular has to be servicing because there's a lot of money behind taking a spare part, going to the machine, diagnosing it, coming back, thinking it's a different problem, going to the machine again, and then fixing it, right? So a lot of time, a lot of money benefits, a lot of travel costs reduced, all of that. So that's number one. Training is a close second. Training also very similar. People are not learning aptly, they're learning generically, they're not learning for the job. So these are the top two. Okay. Second question, has COVID changed the adoption of AR? If so, in which function, which sectors? Okay. Very relevant. We've been internally contemplating that a lot before COVID. COVID's accelerated this adoption. It definitely has changed the adoption of AR. Now you can do remote operations, you can do remote maintenance, you can do remote servicing, you can do remote collaboration, everything remote. When we are all working remotely, I've been working from home for the past 9-10 months, and it's been and I was so surprised that with the use of Zoom and Teams, I never realized in the past I could do this, and my team could do it that well, and we are doing it. Similarly, for the frontline worker within every manufacturing organization, he can remotely connect with any technician, any expert technician anywhere else. And that would be number one. Again, servicing there, fixing something that's broken would be the function in which it's seen acceptance. Training somebody from a distance, maintaining a procedure, doing a factory inspection, and understanding what to change, and just to even monitor the health of products, you can do that now remotely, right? You can go in and watch how to change things. So all of these areas, sectors specifically, I would say we're not seeing any major sectoral trends. Sectors that have not been affected by COVID too much. For example, I know that the energy sector, solar sector has been hit a little bit. There's the other sectors that have been hit would be, say, oil and gas to an extent. I think their consumption isn't.
When I asked about sectors, Raj, what I meant was the AR adoption. I'm not talking about disturbance of sector by COVID.
Okay.
The AR adoption, which sectors have become more accelerated in terms of adopting AR?
Yeah. So actually, there's no such sectoral trends being observed, because every sector, industry in every sector, a company in every sector has got a service department, okay, of some kind. So that way, discrete industry has got more reliance on service compared to the process industry, etc. And therefore, fixing of machines remotely is much more relevant in the discrete industry. Maybe we see a small trend there, but where training is concerned, everybody needs to be trained, etc. Everybody needs to be assisted remotely. So we're not seeing major changes there. What I was meaning by talking about the impact of COVID on those sectors is, if those sectors are doing well, then their spend on technology is improving. Okay, is not affected. Otherwise, they are going after the immediate priority of improving their demand, and then they're putting off certain technologies for later. Okay. What are the areas of training for understanding and applying AR? I think my videos were self-explanatory. I mean, any complex equipment, any complex procedure in front of a new joinee of a company that needs to understand something that's complex, it can be all simplified. A bike can be opened up. The 3D model of a bike can be imported, it can be opened up, and you can teach a service technician about every small component within a bike. And bike is
so that means in the automobile workshop for cars and bikes, this will be a humongous opportunity to implement AR.
Absolutely is. It
Because
absolutely
now
is.
the availability of people, particularly the skilled people, to
That's
repair cars and motorcycles.
That's right.
I request somebody to switch off their audio. Hello, 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 Rupa.
Shivram.
Shivram, please,
Yeah.
Mr. Shivram, you're disturbing 200 people. So this is a very interesting application of automobile workshops in two-wheeler and four-wheeler. And India, that kind of, even the rural market, we have millions of motorcycles. People go into the, so this I can visualize with the digital penetration, I believe is 40% in India in the mobile phones. Maybe it's more, but my data is 1 year old. Maybe during the COVID, it might have become 60% mobile penetration, even in the rural India. And the workshops for servicing the motorcycles can give huge amount of employment for the rural India. When I talk to the government of Karnataka, I will inform them this potential.
Sure.
Yes, next question, sir.
Great. We'll make smart machine using sensors. Do we have any issue with sensor life?
This is asked by a company, is a MSME who's making smart machines.
All right. Okay. Again, the answer, like for most questions, is depends. We'll have to look at what industry, what kind of machine it is. But generically, I'd say sensor costs are coming down because the economies of scale are kicking in as more and more people adopt this technology. Sensor quality is going up, which means a lot of people are now creating better quality sensors, and more manufacturers are creating better sensors for retrofitting into machines. So I would say sensor life is, in a lot of cases, I think we were looking at some use cases with telcos and so on. We know that battery life, for example, runs for a couple of decades. Okay, sensors are hardwares, and therefore they probably will have a shelf life for a certain amount of time, but I'm sure it's going to be 10 years plus. And by the time you'll anyway need to replenish and revamp the kind of sensors that are going into different components. So I would say we'll have to go into it in depth. I'm happy to take any questions if you connect with me through LinkedIn, and we can look at the specific industry and I can answer that.
Yes.
Any standards are available for Industry 4.0 sensors? Is it need for that? Okay, so most of the Industry 4.0 sensing today is done by what's called OPC UA protocol, okay, which is Open Public Communication. And you've got, if it's PLC based, if the machines are PLC based, then you just need drivers, software drivers, to speak to any component, any parameter of that machine can be extracted. Any data parameter can be extracted if it speaks if it is a PLC based machine, which 80%, 85% of machines today on the shop floor are. For the remaining, and that's what Industry 4.0 sensing would be majorly. And we've got technology called Kepware for it, KEPWARE. Okay, so we've got that technology to speak natively to machines that are PLC based. For anything that's outside of that, we've got we'll have to do retrofitting, which is typically older machines. We'll have to do retrofitting with sensors, and there is no real standard for it. It can speak in any of the other protocols and frameworks like MQTT, COAP, etc. And that's just a mechanism to extract data from different devices. So these technologies are really evolving inorganically, and therefore standardization is not really possible, at least at this point in time. It will take some time before any standardization happens.
I'll move on to another 7 more questions. So
okay.
Time management.
Right. How can MSMEs benefit out of AR to improve their business? I think it's been reiterated multiple times. It's not jazz. Any company can really benefit in terms of applying AR to their operations, to their training procedures, to their servicing procedures, etc. You can really benefit big time. Digital transformation.
I would just add on that point, Rajkiran.
Yeah.
It so happened in the Indian manufacturing structure, in the value chain of MSME versus OEM, most OEMs are in and around the metropolitan. For example, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, and Gurgaon, like that. But whereas the MSMEs are in Madurai, Trichy, Belgaum, Shimoga, Aurangabad, Ludhiana, you know. So the MSMEs being in upcountry, district market as we call it, can be much more benefited by the AR. I talked about the rural India issue with the motorcycle repair. Similarly, there are manufacturing companies in the remotest part of the villages around Coimbatore, for example, or Ludhiana, Jalandhar. So I think it's going to be an exploding thing, more beneficial to MSME than even the OEMs, because OEMs have got people sitting inside for fixing the machines because they got a maintenance department, whereas MSMEs don't have a maintenance department, and they're dependent on the capital goods companies to support them from remotely.
Very good point. Especially in this COVID time, we saw that we're having very few people going out into the field and fixing things. It can be done remotely. So MSMEs with very few workforce, very few employees, and not having a service department or a maintenance department, you can really do this with one person being a remote technician and allowing the customer to do self-service. Correct.
Next question is about, there is a question asked by somebody on cost, which is a famous thing everybody asks.
Digital transformation is too expensive. That's the one. Can SME afford the MSC cost? Of course. And that's why it's about innovating for the business model. What you should be looking at is always a cost benefit analysis. You should decide what benefit it's going to give you in 1, 2, 3 years after deploying the technology, and then decide whether it's expensive or not. In a lot of cases, we have proved to customers that it's not expensive, and they've adopted it. We've got adoption of by companies even who are as big as 50 crores in turnover in the country, right up to the multi-billion-dollar companies. So we've got the whole spectrum. We've got different innovative models for all of these. We cater to the MSME sector as well. I told you we're running something very initial stages. It's a Government of India initiative. I see a question around that as well on the Diksha initiative. So we are putting our business model there. So nothing is too expensive. Expensive.
The related question, Raj, sorry to interrupt you, is that do you have an ROI model which can be publicly used by any MSME, whereby they can themselves see? It is like a EMI calculation for a bank loan. A situation has come, the education and awareness in this industry cannot wait for several Raj Kirans to come and educate us. So can all of you create some models, business models, whereby people can calculate the return on investment? For example, somebody told me that 50 crore companies can easily convince themselves for an investment of 1 crore on digital transformation, which is 2%. 2% is, I think, 1 crore. So that kind of statements are like opinions. Whereas if you can have a business model to calculate the cost benefit of that 1 crore, that 1 crore can lead to 5 crore benefit, which is 10% of the 50 crores, then I think MSMEs can be convinced much easily in the days to come.
We don't have a model like that publicly available, because at this point in time, and it can change in future once the technology matures. At this point in time, because different companies use technologies in different ways, right?
Okay, privately, if somebody approaches PTC, you have ready-made business models to convince them on the ROI, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Next question is about speed of connectivity.
Speed of connectivity for AR. We've created very good AR experiences with 3G data speeds. Under 4G backhaul, it's working even well, and with 5G coming in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm sure that we will be able to just render very fast. So the speed of connectivity is, you just really need to have a stable connection, which is what is required. Speed is less relevant than stability of the connection. What all measures need to be taken to avoid hackers interfering with the connected systems? Okay, so when IoT has exploded over the past 10 years, let's say, security has been a major concern for everybody, right? Are you going to hack? Are people? Is it going to be prone to hack attacks from different corners? So at every layer in the IoT stack, which is right in the device layer, at the sensor layer, and right up to the ThingWorks to the IoT platform layer, we are incorporating security. Okay, security and privacy norms are being incorporated at all of these levels. So I would say it is just because it's exposed to the internet, you have to be putting in more security measures than it would have had to be in the past. And because it's software driven more, it has to be done. So a washing machine manufacturer, for example, would have to incorporate security for his washing machine for the PLC not to be hacked into. We incorporate security into the IoT platform. So if you really see the stack, at every level, whoever owns that technology has to be incorporating security, and that's how it's working in the market. So we'll just have to see at what level it's going to be hacked into and who's responsible for that. If a hack happens, we don't see any hacking happening at the moment because it's all under a virtual private network within a factory, etc. So there's multiple lines of defense already incorporated into it. So I don't think it needs to be much of a concern at the moment.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the last couple of questions.
Standard off-the-shelf solutions based on AR, of course, and which can be used for manufacturing, or each of these solutions? No, they're not. So there was one slide in which I talked about varying different degrees of coding expertise required. The topmost, which is called Vuforia Expert Capture and Vuforia Studio, you can Google these. I'm telling you the product names because you asked about it. Don't need any coding. Okay, so they are standard off-the-shelf products. You can just deploy them. In fact, there is a trial version for I think 30 days at least, but 90 days probably now for Vuforia Studio. Go to studio.vuforia.com and download the application, and you should be able to use it straight away.
And then the last important question is about, since the topic talked about mixed reality, we didn't say anything much about it. Can you take some next 3 minutes to say about it?
That's correct. I mean, mixed reality. Let me tell you, augmented reality is already virtual reality built into it, okay, to an extent. Mixed reality is a terminology that was propagated by Microsoft, bringing in different aspects of the physical world and different aspects of data coming in from the IoT world and so on. So it's really just another terminology. It's like cloud computing and fog computing and all of those interchangeable terms that can be used. Mixed reality is also something of that nature. But yeah, you can look at it as augmented plus virtual. Augmented is augmenting the physical world. Virtual is cutting yourself off from the physical world. Mixed is really very close to augmented reality, is what I would say, but it's an alternative terminology.
There are a couple of things you can read on that. Okay. Are you able to read my additional questions that are popping up now?
Yes, I can.
People become very active in the last 5 minutes, I can tell you.
Yeah, I can see. I can see that. What's the measure of performance for working of AR effectively? What do you? I didn't get the question. Measure of performance. Can that be further? Would you know, Mr. Mauli, what he meant by what's the measure of performance?
I think what he's talking about. See, everything improves something. It can improve quality, delivery, uptime, service guarantee, service response time. So I think all these applications are going to be measured rather than AR being measured. So my answer to Dr. Narahari, I will help you on this answer, is let us measure the benefit rather than the AR itself, because AR is going to be measured through its performance in terms of the operational excellence, be it a service excellence or a PLM excellence or production excellence, so or the training excellence for that matter. But somebody asked, can we do a behavioral training through AR? I'm sure it is possible. That maybe in another forum we can talk. That was Dr. Narahari is a very, very active professor linking RV College and the industry for the last 20 years. I know him very well, and he has some of his students are there also today. So I think measure of performance for any tool has to be from the end result rather than the process. So I would, that will be my answer. I don't know about yours, Raj.
Oh, that's correct. And measure of performance is, of course, I was showing in the last two slides, it lowers capital equipment costs, it lowers the scrap costs, it lowers the headcount requirement, it lowers attrition. People are now learning better, they are getting more skilled. It lowers training costs, travel costs. All these are measurable, and these are all reflecting on the balance sheet of every company. How much have you spent on trips by a service organization is something that is measured, right? Travel and expense budget is something that's measured. Now, if you see next year that your service team has not traveled that much, you know why. And we also tell them these are what the major companies are benefiting. And we have CTOs, CXOs of different companies coming on record and saying, I have seen this kind of a benefit, and the same percentages can be applied. Okay, so it has benefits across.
Even when you do return on investment, Dr. Narahari, even when you do return on investment, the measure of performance becomes the numerator and the cost of the AR becomes a denominator. So we can do a total life cost of these kind of technologies.
Correct.
To convince ourselves that the return on investment is worth it.
That's right.
Well. We are reaching the hard stop time, but I got very important, interesting questions. I would like to take the students' question, if you don't mind, for a fresher engineering graduate. How can one start a career in AR? Which companies to apply? What entrance exams to compete?
Which companies to apply? I know. I know we are hiring big time. We've got certain other companies.
Great.
Our partners are hiring big time as well. There's a lot of partner companies.
Partners means who are partners? You mean system integrators?
We've got systems integrators, we've got content creators, we've got experience creators. We've got a big ecosystem. I mean, BTC makes the software, but we've got an ecosystem of companies that apply that software to the actual end customer, which in some cases is not really complex, but the company does that better for them. So you can apply to those companies as well. There's a huge ecosystem. It's a booming technology. To answer how do you start your career, there's a lot of courses in Udemy and a couple of other online learning websites around augmented reality. I did a couple of them a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, just to get up to speed with it. So you can look up.
Can you send to BCIC to me the course that you attended, Mr.
Sure.
Rajkiran?
I can do that as well. All right.
Okay.
So I will. I'll send you the links to those.
No issue. I will remind you.
Great.
Then somebody is asking about what is holding industry from adopting AR, VR, MR extensively. This has come from the head of Toyota Kirloskar Auto Plant, Mr. Prakash, my colleague from the BCS.
All right. Okay. Thank you a lot for that question, Mr. Prakash. I think what is holding industry, the fundamental thing that's holding the industry from adopting this is a lot of people think AR is just the attractive way of doing something, which we've already been doing. It's not necessarily linked to benefits, but the fact that we learn faster, we improve in our abilities to do things better, and that has got a longer term effect, is not entirely understood by a lot of companies. I would say 90% of the companies. So the one thing that's holding the industry back from adopting this technology is not realizing how much benefit there is. Partly it's because of companies like us, we have not communicated the value well enough, and partly it's because a lot of companies started off with applications such as gaming for VR and so on and so forth. So it went into the non-trivial, it went into the trivial areas first, because that was more jazzy and it was more appealing to people. There is severe benefits. There is a lot of benefits that companies derive from using AR technology. That we are in discussions with a lot of pharma companies worldwide that are saying this is a pain point for me to even do my changeover setup. Okay, I'm losing crores of rupees in doing this. I'm losing tens of thousands of dollars in this because my person who's doing it does things wrong. He doesn't know how to do it. I spent time on training him. He still doesn't get it. We have to change this and things have to be done better. Similarly, in the case of complex equipment in front of them, how to operate, how to service. I talked about it a lot. In the case of Toyota, it'll be automobiles. So how do you service a machine very effectively up front? So what's holding them back is to actually link the visual appeal to rupee benefits, to money benefits. That gap is what we are helping.
The second one, which is holding up, Raj, I want to tell you, is that there are very few skilled people to understand both at the transmitting point of the AR and the receiving point of the AR. There are very few skilled people. There is a huge skilling mission going on from the government of India and the private sector. For your information, there are 20 new job roles have been identified, ladies and gentlemen and students. Please contact Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, where we will we will create a platform for upskilling and reskilling existing people from the industry, which is a crying need, as well as for the students and including faculty. So that is one of the biggest bottleneck, Mr. Prakash. And this is more than the equipment and technology and cost, etc. One other point I want to tell you, Raj, is that,
and that's actually the point you brought out is actually a fallout of the fact that people are not taking AR seriously as it should be taken. When people take the technology,
I understand. It's a chicken or egg question.
So it's the second level, and people then will make the skilling. Colleges, for example, we are tying up with a lot of universities and colleges to include AR in their curriculum and tell them what the benefits are. So it's actually a ripple effect. But that's why I said it's a fundamental reason why.
Fundamental reason is the cost benefit. I agree. But those companies who realize the cost benefit, now you mentioned 30 use cases in India. You know, by now we would expect 300 use cases or 3,000 use cases in such a large country, where remote maintenance and remote training is so important during COVID and other regimes. So the intention and willingness to do versus the capability to do is one is a necessary condition, another is a sufficient condition. And the combination of both makes a success for this new technology. The last question being, what is Diksha initiative?
Okay, I won't be able to explain too much. Diksha initiative is a Government of India initiative. It's already available on the website. Just Google and find out. We are working at the moment with Intel, who's one of the front partners who are running that initiative. Essentially, we are catering to the MSME segment with our technology. So nothing is out of bounds for us. So we are catering to the large and the small. That's why I brought that up. But Diksha is publicly available. You can just do. It's a skill development initiative. We are running one with NSDC, similarly with Diksha as well.
Great. I think it has been a very, very valuable and highly informative session, Mr. Raj Kiran. My personal thanks to you and official thanks from Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And we had 200 people who joined in the beginning, and there were 150 at the end of 1 hour, and now still we have 103 at the end of 2 hours. And it is one of the most successful sessions Bangalore Chamber has had. And hats off to you, Raj, that you brought up the IoT in the first 1 hour and the AR in the second 1 hour. And most of the Q&A covered the AR. So indirectly, we covered a large portion of the session on AR. But later on, I will bother you for deeper master classes, what we call the immersive learning and a knowledge-based immersive learning, virtual classroom and a physical-based in a practical-based immersive learning through virtual laboratory. And we will talk to you offline on that subject. And ladies and gentlemen and students, don't worry. We are here with Raj Kiran, standing strong with you to spread the message of AR. And next year, Raj will tell us it is not 30 companies, it is 300 companies adopting AR. And one of the other bottlenecks I know is the wearables are not available yet in that manner. I was told even globally, wearables are a bottleneck. The HoloLens, and etc. And then there are device bottlenecks, and some of the companies are still using the tablet as a AR device. I don't know whether you still call it as a 3D or you would call it as 2D, because the tablet is, although it is there, it is not a 3D from the sensing point of view. Many companies are finding very comfortable for mobile phones and tablets. So there are bottlenecks and challenges of hardware technology and software technology, and above all, the return on investment, and above all, the skilling requirement and management, mental blocks, sometimes cynicism. Ye sab nahi hoga India mein is also one issue which some of us have that in large companies as well as smaller companies. So there are a lot of convincing required. And Raj, I want to tell you, the Samarth Udyog centers across the country, or of which some of you already tied up with IIT Delhi, FSM. And so this is an excellent platform to spread the awareness more and more. And on that note,
Thank
I would
you.
like to thank you and close this session.
Right,
Thank you all.
very much.
And other
thank you,
questions
everybody.
people can write to. Yes.
Thanks,
Other
Mr.
questions
Prithvi.
people
Chandramouli
can
and
feel
Mr.
free to
Rajkiran, I
write
think it's an
to.
excellent session.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody, and feel free to reach out to me in any modus that you want.
Sir, can we have the recording?
We will take the permission from Rajkiran and we'll come back to you.
The recording.
Sure, please.
We will come back to you after taking permission from Rajkiran. We will come back to you.
Let's
Thank you,
give him a
Thank
big
you, sir.
hand. Round of applause.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Rajkiran has talked to his
Thank you,
MD.
sir. We are from Sona Group of Institutions, Salem, sir, Tyagarajan Polytechnic.
Great.
There is a lot of national perspectives today. So
Nice.
it is not only Karnataka centric. The power of online program is it spreads. BCIC is a national company, and very soon we will have branches in Dubai, America, and other places. There is a big mission, and Salem is very close, and there is also a Salem in America. We will come to that later. Thank you.
Definitely, sir. We always welcome. We always welcome.
You heard the good news that AR people will get better salaries if they join PTC and its associates. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.